Alright, so let's look at a different example of modeling real-time assets. I'm going to show you a different modeling method here. What I'm going to do is open up an example scene. It's going to be called Example Building, so let's open that up. What we see here is a piece of the building from the warehouse scene that I had created before. Alright, and you can see here the way that it looks. Basically, it's kind of a two-pronged approach to get this done. Alright, on the one hand, the object is actually modeled. There's actual geometry on this object. On the other hand, there's a really nice texture, and what we do is we use the texture to help us model this object. Okay, so it's kind of like texture reference modeling, which is kind of a unique sort of technique here that we can use to model objects, make them look realistic by using minimum geometry, but also using a high-res detailed texture to make this pop out and look more realistic. So if I look at this object without the wireframe, and I look at it from the side, you can see here that it's not just a flat object. You can actually see the geometry, the highlights and things. There's actual pieces of geometry that are sticking out of this object or pushed into this object. Okay. If it's an object that's close up to the camera like this, that the player is going to be able to walk up to, I recommend using the technique like this. Basically, you want to have real geometry on the object so that it looks more realistic and more believable and immersive to the player. Now, if this was an object that the player never gets close to, and this is about as close as the player is going to get to it, then I recommend just using a flat texture and don't even bother wasting triangles and geometry modeling in those windows and things like that. But in this case, we do want to model the geometry because this is an object that the player gets to walk up to and look at up close and personal, so to speak. Okay, so how do we model this kind of geometry in? It's pretty simple. Let me deselect that object. I'm going to go over here and go to the Create Polygon Tool. Okay, and I'm going to make sure I activate Vertex Snapping. So hold down the V key to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and basically create a polygon right there. And this new polygon follows the same dimensions as the other wall. So let me take this other wall over here, and I'm going to hide it for now. So now I have this flat polygon object. And what I'm going to do is let me go over here to the right, click the marking menu, and I'm going to assign existing material. I have a building material already, so I'm going to assign that. You can see that the UVs are kind of messed up. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on UVs here, but let me go ahead and open up the UV texture editor. You can see the way that the UVs look, which obviously is not good. So let me take the object. Let's go to polygons. I'm going to go to edit UVs, and I'm going to hit unitize. And that'll sort of semi-fix the problem up. If I look at this, you can see it looks better, but we still need to adjust this. So let me just take the UVs real quick and just adjust this a little bit right here and right there. Alright, that's good enough. Okay, perfect. Alright, so now the UVs match and everything, but if we look at this up close, and especially from an angle like this, it's just a flat 2D billboard effect, which doesn't look very nice. It's pretty ugly, not convincing, doesn't look too great. Texture looks great, but the geometry is not there. So let's add some geometry to this. Alright? So let me go over to the right view, and I'm going to go to texture mode. Right now my lighting's messing me up, so let me go over here to lighting and tell it to use no lights. Perfect. Alright, Maya has some tools that we can use to get this done. Okay, but first what I want to do here, and what I want to do is, let me go ahead and let me take the Cut Faces tool, and I'm going to make a cut face about here for this window. If you hold down Shift, you can control this better, by the way. Let me actually make this cut about right there. That's going to work out pretty good. And I'm going to make another cut about right there. I'm going to select faces. I'm going to select this face, go to the Cut Faces tool, and you can see how quickly and easily I could cut these polygons. And basically, I'm following the image. So anywhere in the image where I have big, important details, I'm making cuts on the polygons in those areas. Okay, now here's one problem that you might end up running into. If I go to Vertex Mode, sometimes this is actually a necessity. Like down here, for example, let me take this face. Let me show you what I mean. Let me make a cut right there for that window. Cut right there for the little windowsill. Alright? Sometimes when you do this, geometry won't match up with the image. For example, if I see this edge that's right here, this edge doesn't match up with the window. So you're probably thinking, well, let me just take the edge and move it over a little bit so it matches with the window. But when I do that, you'll notice this happens. This is a serious problem. Right now we're getting UV distortion. So if I make an exaggerated edit, you can see my UVs are messed up, my texture's no good, all my work is pretty much ruined. So how do we get around that problem? Well, if you go to the tool options for the move tool, you'll see an option down here, the preserve UVs option. You notice that this preserve UVs option, usually it's off by default, but I'm going to turn that on. Let me close my tool options right there. Now if I move this, you notice that the UVs try to get distorted, but as soon as I stop editing, Maya intelligently readjusts the UVs. Basically, this allows the UVs to get transformed at the same time as the geometry you're editing. Now the tool is limited, it's not perfect, it's not going to fix every problem, but when you're working on like a 2D plane like this, it actually ends up working pretty good. So what you might want to do is go to Vertex Mode, take these vertices right here, and move them in a little bit so it matches with the image. So if you end up with any problems like this, you can just go ahead and fix that real quick. Not a big deal, pretty simple to do. Okay, so let me go back to this window and use this one as an example. What I want to do now is create a face here that I can extrude into the object and create some actual geometry. So one way to do that pretty easily, or the first thing that's going to come to mind, is to go to the Extrude tool. Let me go to the options and reset this. I'm going to go to Extrude and push that in. But if I do this, you'll notice that the texture right here is going to get stretched out. Looks cool, but the texture gets stretched out, and that's obviously no good. So what I want to do, I want to basically do an inset. But if I go to Extrude here, I go to the options. Let me just go to Extrude. To inset, we would scale this down, but then you see the UVs get messed up. That's obviously not good. Okay. If we add divisions, that doesn't help. Sometimes adding divisions actually does help, but in this case, it's not going to help. So let me go back to the right view. So don't think that all is lost. All is not lost. We can still fix this. One thing that we can do is we can use the split polygon tool, and I can just come up here and I can create some splits. Remember to use the right click on the mouse when you're finished creating a split and you're going to start a new one. So make some splits here so that we have ourselves this sort of nice square polygon that's right in here. But let's clean this up a little bit. What I want to do here is I want to take this vertex and weld it to that vertex over there. Now one thing that I could do is I could go to Merge Vertices and I could use the Merge Vertex tool. Let me make sure that the options are reset. And what this allows me to do is do this. But unfortunately, when I do that, the UVs get messed up. Now this is what I talked about earlier. Remember when I mentioned that using the Preserve UVs option is great, but it's not perfect. It can't solve every situation. This is what I meant. You could see when I start merging vertices, the UVs get distorted and messed up. So we can't use that tool. Okay, so we need to find another way to fix this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the split polygon tool real quick, and I'm just going to clean up this geometry. So I'm going to make these edits right here, basically these corners over here, almost as if though I had inset this. So boom and boom. And then what I want to do is I want to go to edge mode. I want to select these sort of useless edges that I no longer need. Okay, and then I'm going to go to delete edge and get rid of that, and there we go, problem solved. And you can see that it looks pretty nice and clean. Let me go back to my perspective view here. I'm going to go to face mode and take this face. Now what I can do is take this face. Let me delete history there. So all you want to do is push this in. UV distortion is no big deal. Then you could scale this up so you could square it up a little bit better. Just kind of edit it and tweak it until you get it to look good. And that's pretty much all there is to it. The next thing you would probably want to do is take maybe this polygon that's down here and extrude this one, pull it out just a little bit so that windowsill has a little bit of depth to it, as you can see. Alright? Now you can see in the texture, windowsill actually continues on a little bit right there, so what you can do is take that polygon, extrude that just a bit like that, just to kind of finish it off. And if you want to do that on the other side, you could. Just to kind of finish that off a little bit and make it look a little bit better. Okay. So now when you look at this from the side, it looks better. Now you can see that the normals are kind of messed up, but we can fix that pretty easily. Let me close the tool options here. Make sure you're in the polygons menu. I'm going to go to normals and go to set normal angle. The default setting is 30 degrees, so I'll hit apply and that fixes it up. If it doesn't, for whatever object you're doing, just change the degree angle right here to tolerance and test out different settings. Different objects will require different normal settings. So now you can see how this looks. So now if I look at this from the side, this flat window here doesn't look too good. But the window with the geometry suddenly looks really good. It looks 3D. It looks more realistic. It looks the way that you would expect it to look. Alright? So it's a pretty simple technique. So now that you know the technique, now you can use it on the rest of the windows on this object. I would also use it on these sort of little holes right here in the texture, sort of these blocks. And that's pretty much it. So I'm not going to go ahead and do it. I'll let you go ahead and experiment with the technique, take care of this, and get it done. I'm just going to end this video here, and that's pretty much it.